If your ex is a narcissist and they're still hovering around, checking in, staying friendly, just somehow always nearby, you're not imagining that. There's actually a very specific psychological reason narcissists stay close to their ex. And once you understand it, that behavior makes a lot more sense. So, to understand why narcissists do this, you first have to realize that narcissists think very different than a healthy, rational person. A narcissist's behavior will never make sense if you're trying to understand them based on what you would do in a specific situation. And so, this is where a lot of survivors will get stuck because they ask questions like, why won't they leave me alone? If they broke up with me, why are they still checking in? If they've supposedly moved on or so happy with their new partner, why are they still watching my life? And the reason these questions feel so confusing is because you're trying to apply your own logic to somebody who does not think the way that you do. So, healthy people are motivated by things like connection, mutual care, seeking closure, wanting emotional honesty. And so it's easy to start wondering if your narcissistic ex is close by, maybe they want closure. Maybe they miss the relationship. Maybe they're actually thinking about getting back together. But that kind of thinking will just keep you really stuck, honestly, in rumination, in anxiety, in confusion, because narcissistic individuals are not motivated by the same things that you are as a healthy, rational person. They're motivated by something called narcissistic supply. So, in order to understand why your narcissistic ex would stay hovering around, checking in sporadically, you really have to understand narcissistic supply and what that does for a narcissist. So, briefly, narcissistic supply is essentially the narcissist version of self esteem. This is how they attempt to regulate their emotions. It's how they feel good about themselves. It's how they get the emotional energy to function, to go about their day, to feel important, to feel worthy, to feel powerful and important and special. A healthy person has an internal sense of self. You want your public and private image to match. But a narcissist relies very heavily on the outside world to tell them who they are. They require external validation to feel stable on the inside. And so supply can look like praise, admiration, attention, control, gaining certain reactions from people, getting reassurance, people needing them, people wanting them, people being impressed by them. And even negative attention can actually function as supply for a narcissist because it still confirms that they matter in the narcissist's mind. Even negative attention still says to them, I matter, I have control, I can affect someone emotionally. And so this is why you often see narcissists light up when they're being praised at work, when they're getting recognition at church, when people are complimenting them, when they're being seen as helpful or impressive or indispensable in some way, or even when they're enthralled in some kind of drama, like they've got so much going on. Even when somebody's mad at them, they're in an argument. You might notice that they seem to have endless energy to try to draw those things into their life or to do the activities and the behaviors that bring them admiration or attention. They have all kinds of energy for that. And then they have little to no energy for the things that honestly make a relationship possible. Things like emotional repair, accountability, like the behind the scenes effort that nobody else is seeing. And there's a reason for that. That's not accidental. That's because they're highly motivated to seek supply and get supply. So now let's bring that back to why narcissists stay close to their ex. So when a narcissistic ex stays hovering around, checking in, staying, quote unquote friendly, or somehow always nearby, it's not about love or seeking closure or friendship. It's actually usually about access. And here's what I mean by that. They want access to your attention, to your emotional energy. They want access to your reactions, access to the sense of relevance they get from knowing that they still matter to you in some way. So as long as they can still exist in your emotional world, that is incredibly ego-filling for them. So this is why something that seems kind of small to you, like maybe you reply, to their text, can actually be much bigger in their internal world. It's meaning something much more to them than it is to you. So even a short, I hope you're doing well, like reply back to them Maybe if you answer that late night call, maybe if you explain your feelings one more time to them, or even telling them that you're upset, all of that can function as supply. And from the narcissist perspective, staying close to you, hovering around, checking in, allows them to test whether they still have influence over you. It allows them to check in to see if they still matter. And it really allows them to reassure themselves that they still have a place in your life. And so that's why you might see things like random, quote, just checking in messages. You'll see them like your social media posts after weeks of silence. They might ask mutual friends about you or even reach out to you with something that sounds caring, maybe, or even neutral on the surface. And for survivors, this is where it gets especially confusing because it can look friendly. Sometimes when a narcissistic ex reaches out to you, like I said, it looks neutral, it looks friendly, it can look like they're being mature, it can look like they're being respectful, maybe like they just want to end on good terms. But underneath all of that, what's happening is that they're regulating themselves through you. They're using your presence, your responses, your emotional availability, the access that you're giving them to you. They're using that to stabilize their own internal world. Now, another reason narcissists stay close to their ex is because it keeps you as a backup source of supply. Think if the narcissist is in a new relationship, but their new relationship isn't going well. Maybe their new partner is finally starting to see them for who they are. If the narcissist just starts to feel bored, if they get rejected, maybe in a relationship, at work, friendship, whatever, if they're not getting enough attention, essentially, in their life, if their new source of supply, whatever they were using for that source of validation, dries up, you're still there. Knowing that you're still there gives them that sense of power, of control, of relevance. So this is why you might notice that your ex will disappear for a while when they're in a new relationship, when things are going well for them, and then suddenly they reappear when something falls apart in their life. So they might pop up, back up in your life during a breakup. If they're having a work issue, if they're having a conflict with a friend, a time when they seem emotionally low. Of course, you don't always know that. You don't always know what's going on with your narcissistic ex, but you can bet that them reaching out to you, if you could know everything that's going on in their world, it would correlate to what they have going on. Like when they reach out to you, and the dips in supply in their life. So it's not random. It's often directly connected and tied to their supply needs. And there's also a control and a relevance component here. So staying close can be a way to maintain a sense of control over you, even if it's subtle, even if it's disguised as being friendly or mature. If they can still get access to you, then they haven't fully lost you. If they can still get a response from you, even a brief one, they still feel powerful. If they can still affect your emotions, even a little bit, even slightly, then they still feel relevant. Sometimes this can look very quiet and subtle. Sometimes this is just a casual message they send. It's just a quick, pop of a reaction to a story. They send an emoji to something you posted. Maybe it's a text or comment to you that's just personal enough to kind of get you reeling back in, to get you emotionally back in. Other times it can be more antagonistic, honestly. So a narcissistic ex might say something that they know will upset you just to see if they can still get that reaction from you. Either way, though, the function is the same. So it reassures them that they still have some kind of control over you. Another important layer is that narcissists often struggle with fearing that they're going to be irrelevant, fearing being forgotten, being replaced, being insignificant. So for a narcissist, being out of your emotional world can feel like a huge blow to their grandiose belief that they're just so amazing, you can never get over them. So staying close is a way to bolster that grandiosity. And this is also why some narcissists actually will escalate. They're hovering around when they sense you are truly moving on, when you stop reacting so much. You're not giving them as much. When you're setting firmer boundaries, when you seem happy, when you're less emotionally available, when you're in a new relationship. So your healing, you getting better, you feeling more like yourself again can actually threaten their supply. So you might notice them checking in more, like digging in those more emotional hooks, using more attempts to get a response during those times when they sense that you're healing. And I've talked to so many clients and survivors who are like, it's like the narcissists have some kind of sense of when I'm healing because that's when they reach out. And there's a reason for that. And that's because of what we're talking about here. And then finally, let's just not forget about how entitled narcissists are. They believe they should be able to reach out to you whenever, wherever, however, no matter what they've done to you, no matter how long it's been, no matter your relationship status, no matter if you've completely moved on, if you've married, if you've got kids. They feel entitled to your time, your energy, your emotional world, and they feel that you should respond to them because they're them. So from your side, of course, this kind of hovering around can be incredibly destabilizing. You might feel confused. You might feel really pulled back in emotionally, even when you don't want to be. You might feel guilty for wanting distance, for creating distance. You might feel like you're being mean for not responding to them. But what's important to understand is that this is not about closeness. Or the narcissist seeking closure. What looks like them trying to be close or reconnect is actually just a continuing manipulation tactic. Even when it looks polite or harmless, honestly, especially when it looks polite or harmless or innocent enough, it can keep you emotionally tethered to them. It can even keep you fully detaching from them or from fully grieving and from fully moving on. It can keep your nervous system activated and it can reopen old emotional wounds that you've been trying to heal. So understanding this pattern of your narcissistic ex, checking in, hovering around you, it's not about labeling them or even staying stuck in anger. It's actually about getting clarity for you. Clarity about that what looks like connection is often regulation for the narcissist. They're connecting with you to regulate themselves. Clarity that what looks like caring is often access. They look like they're caring about you, but really, they just want access to you. And to get clarity that what looks like friendliness can still be a part of an unhealthy dynamic. So when you understand this, really what's going on in the background here becomes a lot easier to make choices that are good for you, honestly, to protect your nervous system, to protect your healing, your emotional world. And your healing does not require you to stay accessible to somebody who once harmed you. So distancing yourself is not being mean. It is not you pulling away or doing something mean to the narcissist. Boundaries are not a punishment. Not responding isn't you being heartless or harming them in some way. You're simply being aware. You're being discerning. You're making sense of why the narcissist is doing what they're doing. And you're making self-honoring choices that protect you and slowly cut off the narcissist's ability to use you for supply. So if this resonated with you, it really helped you understand like what could be happening with the narcissist in your world, then I want to invite you to my free masterclass, which is called the Narcissist Playbook, because in this training, I break down the most common manipulation patterns that narcissists use, really how to spot them, and then what you can do to start protecting your emotional world and getting your time and your energy back, what you can do to break free from this trauma bond, get out of this toxic cycle. And you can watch it for free by clicking the link in the description. So it's going to help you see those patterns more clearly so you can stop personalizing their behavior, stop being confused by what they're doing, and really start trusting yourself again. So until next time, remember that no matter where you are in your healing journey, resilience can always be restored. And we're going to keep building it together. So I will see you in the next episode.